Today's guest is one of the best young footballers in Scotland. After making a St Johnstone debut aged only 18, he has gone on to become a first team regular, has made his debut for his national team Northern Ireland, and was a key part of the League Cup winning side who defeated Livingston at Hampden 2 weeks ago. That's right, he's better than Zidane. We've got Ali McCann.
Ali, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, good to be here.
So Ali, first question, how did you manage to balance school and football when you were in the youth academy? Obviously you started playing at a very young age, so was it quite difficult to get the balance right?
Well, I came up here when I was 14, I think, so that would have been third year in school. And then I was quite lucky that my mum and dad were able to drive me up in the evenings, so that took that sort of hassle away from me. But when I got to fifth year, I came up and trained full time on a Friday. Like, there was a group of us that came in on, so I think it was called day release. So that was when I was doing my hires. So I managed to get a full day, sort of getting an insight to what full time football was like, as well as still getting a full 4 days of school. So that sort of suited me down to the ground because I didn't really miss too much on the Friday, but I still managed to get a sort of foot in the door with full time football. So that was probably good for me in the long run.
Becoming a footballer is obviously quite a very difficult task, and we were just wondering if you had a plan B for if you didn't succeed.
Well, I sort of knew in the back of my mind that I had to, because it made me be a bit naive to not have anything. So I did my hires in school and I left after the end of fifth year, but I managed to get decent results in my hires. So I've sort of got a backup plan if I need to, but I probably should maybe do a course on the side while I've got the time outside of football. But I would recommend that for all footballers if you've got the option to do that. So I need to sort of get the finger out and start doing that. But no, I've not really done anything just yet.
And Ali, obviously you've been very successful in the last couple of years, especially for Saints, so much so that you've got called up for Northern Ireland last year. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was brilliant. I'd only been in the 21s maybe a year, so it was 4 or 5 camps. And even then it was kind of surreal being in and around it with all the different people there. But then to get the senior call up was unreal, to be fair. It was kind of like madness being in squads with these players that you've been looking at when you're younger. They've been playing in the Prem for years, and then I'm just the wee guy on the end, sort of tagging along. But just the experience of being in and around them was brilliant. And then to play in the last camp, 2 caps was just icing on the cake, and hopefully I can get more. Excellent.
And what would your advice be to young people who aspire to be footballers like you?
Well, I always just tried when I was younger to work as hard as I can, but also enjoy myself as well. There's no point in doing anything if you're not enjoying yourself, and I still do that now. Just try and have a laugh when you can, as well as put in as much effort as you can in. But if you manage to get those two together, yeah, that's ideal. So that's what I've tried to do, and I'd say that to young people.
Was there a lot of pressure when you were coming up to the youth academy? Obviously, there's so many players that sort of get into youth academies and then never end up making it. Did you ever sort of doubt yourself?
You sort of didn't really cross my mind when I was younger. You didn't really plan too far ahead. It's not like you see people at sort of your Celtics and Rangers. There's hundreds of players there that sort of can get forgotten and all that. Here it was quite good because there's focus on every player. There's sort of like, they look after everyone. So it was a good upbringing here for the 4 years I was in the youth academy. So it was, and obviously it's well documented that Alistair Stevenson, the head of youth, is doing a great job, because there's been loads of people in the first team now that have come through. So they are brilliant, and it lets you enjoy your football rather than having to worry about other stuff like that.
Brilliant. And congratulations on the League Cup a couple of weeks ago. We were just wondering what the pressure was like in a game like that and how you cope with it.
It was a weird one, actually, because coming up to the game, I wasn't actually nervous at all until I was in the tunnel walking out, and then it sort of hit you that you walk, like, the trophy's there. You're like, this is kind of a big deal now. That obviously you're seeing reading on Twitter and that all the stuff that's going on in the city, the banners and scarves and that are up on people's windows and that sort of takes a while to sink in, and then afterwards you're seeing it all, and it's just you have to sort of step back a bit and see what you've done. It was a brilliant day in general, and it was massive for the club. And you see what, like, the stuff afterwards. The fans were loving it, so it was brilliant for us.
Have you found it a bit strange playing without fans, or is that sort of something that you've got used to now because it's been like that for quite a while?
To start with, it was definitely a bit weird because it was like, obviously there's no atmosphere because there's no one at the game, but it was like hard to get yourself going because it just feels like a friendly or a youth team game, something like that. But when you're playing, you're still sort of pent up. The players are motivated because you get yourself going yourselves. But we're sort of used to it now. It'll be weird when the fans actually do come back, but you could probably say it takes the pressure off when there's no fans. But you could also say that when you're doing well, you don't get the backing that you would get. So it just works both ways. But we're sort of used to it by now. But hopefully, I don't enjoy it as much, obviously, because there's no atmosphere. But I'm used to it by now.
Did coronavirus have a big effect on you as a player?
The first sort of lockdown was kind of weird because no one really knew what was happening. Like, we were obviously off for a few months, and we were just running. I was just running all the time because we had our wee programs and that, and there was nothing else to do. So I kept myself fit. So it wasn't like a normal pre-season where you'd maybe go on holiday, relax a wee bit, enjoy yourself. So it was actually all right. Came back, I know everyone was in pretty good nick because you weren't on holiday or anything, so you wouldn't really fall out of fitness. So for me, I didn't feel it was, obviously the time off was frustrating, but it wasn't that bad because obviously you just think there's people in a lot worse situations than us.
Yeah. Are there any lessons, Ali, from football that you think you've sort of taken into everyday life, especially I think with the lockdown, it might have sort of changed your perspective a little bit?
It's sort of, the lockdown particularly made you grateful for what you have because you see all the stuff going on. The news every day was pretty depressing. So when we're back in here, you sort of enjoyed it a bit more. You get on with the lads a bit more, and it's just being in here, you just learn sort of dedication, teamwork and all that, and I think that's something you can transfer into whatever you do, and hopefully whatever I go into after football I can transfer some skills over.
Definitely. And I was just wondering what training looked like when did you have to phase in once lockdown kind of eased up? Did you just go right back into it? What did that look like?
So it was originally, we came in groups of 4, I think, and it was just running in 2s. So that obviously was hardly back to normal. So it was maybe a few weeks of that, and then eventually it got up to 8s and then back to normal. But so it wasn't the first few weeks you were always running anyway, so it didn't really make a difference in that respect. But it was a bit weird having to keep your distance. Like, you're not allowed in the changing rooms. It seems like years ago now thinking back on it, but it was a bit strange, but you just sort of had to make the most of what you had. The weather was nice, so it was all right. It made it manageable, but it was strange. But thankfully, we're kind of back to normal now. But I mean, not really. But
what are your sort of aspirations for your career now, Ali? Obviously, you've been so good this season for Saints, and I've watched all the games and been really impressed by you. Do you sort of aim much higher now, or do you just sort of take it game by game?
I don't know. You can't really put any sort of like goals, like actual goals in your head, because then you set yourself up to be disappointed. I don't know if that's quite a pessimistic view on it, but I just you don't get too ahead of yourself. Whatever happens, and obviously everyone's aim is to go as high as you can, but you need to be realistic as well. So I just sort of take every game, as you said, by game, and then hopefully you can keep building. If we get top 6, obviously a big game next weekend coming up, and the League Cup win, that would be brilliant for us, and I'd say is the next goal for me and everyone else here.
So we'll now move on to some quick fire questions. So I'll just start off. What does a normal working day look like for you?
Well, I would hardly call it a working day because we're playing football, but we come in maybe 9:45, have a wee dilly-dally for 45 minutes, go out to train. Usually you'd have maybe gym sessions, hang around, have a coffee or that here, but it's just lunching in a way because of COVID. So it's not as enthralling as it usually is.
We're also wondering, do you have a pre-match routine?
I wouldn't say some players are sort of like superstitious enough. They have to do the same thing each time, do all the tape and put stuff on the same way. I'm not really that bothered about anything, because then you can sort of overthink things. I've had my normal foods like my eggs and that beforehand, but I'd say that's my routine as far as it goes, really.
Ali, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, that's a tough one, actually. Should have given me a bit of preparation to think about that. Probably, you take wee snippets every single day. I wouldn't say there's anything specific, but the people that I've only been professional for maybe 4 years now, but the people I've been around have been brilliant. There's obviously people here like Liam Craig gives you advice probably every day. You've got like Bunny Davison, David Wilspoon and that around here that can give you wee bits here and there. So you sort of just pick up wee bits every time you're training, every game you play with them. But I couldn't say there's anything specific.
And then going easier, what is your favourite meal?
My favourite meal? A bit weird, but I love lasagna. It's my go-to.
Good shout.
Smash. Can't beat it.
Yeah. Ali, is there one dream player that you would love to play with at some point in your career?
Dream player that I'd love to play with? Back in the day when I was watching football, I watched Zidane all the time, and he was brilliant, wasn't he? He was unreal.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not playing anymore, but if you could wind back 10 years or 15 years and play with him, you could just give him the ball and he'd do everything for you. That's what I would have gone for. He was class.
Yeah, play. And finally, if you're stuck on a desert island with 3 other Saints players, who would they be and why?
Well, we've been split up into our wee specific changing rooms right now, so I'd have to probably look after Jason Kerr and Liam Gordon, those two. So we're in our wee changing room at the minute right now, so I'd probably say them.
What would they bring to the desert island, do you think?
They're reliable, aren't they?
Reliable,
they're always there when
yeah.
you need them. Reliable. You could look after them, and they got a decent bit of crack sometimes.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, with that, we come to the end of the interview. Once again, Ali, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure.
No worries.
Thank you, Tom. This is obviously the finale of the series, so Tom, I think we've done well, haven't we? And we're very happy with the series that we've had.
Yes, definitely. And every guest has been absolutely brilliant, and we're just so glad you came on and have been able to inspire the pupils of Perth Academy.
Yes.